oh, you're only judging someone based on looks, and you're only judging someone based on text messages.
Saying that people were not shallow before the internet is like saying that people were not naked before the internet. You know, you see people naked because of the internet. You see people being shallow because of the internet. But yeah, before the internet, people were shallow.
Hello to all my 10 out of 10 followers. Today I wanted to talk about why women have such high standards nowadays. So for girls having high standards, I just question why you have those standards and if they're really genuine for who you are and what you're looking for.
The first time you met my ex-wife, Melissa, my best girl, is off camera. You might not have picked up on this, but the first time you met my ex-wife and the first time she met you, she was looking at you like, you're not his type. She was totally sizing you up, and like, you know, obviously I can read her. I was together with my ex-wife for like 6 years, so I can interpret like the expression on her face, and you know, she's looking at you, and you know, she was thinking his type is, you know, the kind of girls in the rap videos. His type is like Hispanic, mixed African American, very curvy. You're not his type. What's he doing with you? Yeah. She was really sizing you up that way. You know, when I arrived in Kunming, China, alone, what was that, in 36? Something like that, 36, 37, thereabouts. It was real funny because some of the Chinese women knew what was up, and they had this real pragmatic attitude, like, yep, a whole lot of women here gonna want you. I remember I had this one teacher who just laughed at the idea that any Chinese woman would want me in Kunming. Yeah. And I mean, this is kind of what this video is all about. Like, there are people who see the world in terms of abstract ideas. And that can be okay when you're talking about architecture, when you're talking about composing music on a blank sheet of paper. But the thing is, especially with human sexuality, but with many, many things in life, it's not about what you would want in abstract, in theory, and in principle. It's about whether or not you would want him, the particular man, the irreducible, palpable, visceral reality of who this guy is. Yeah. And you might want him despite all the things you'd say you'd want in theory or in abstract. And the same for the man in relation to the woman. Like, maybe my ex-wife is right. Like, you're not my type, or you're not the type I was interested in, whatever, 10, 15 years ago or something, or I was brainwashed by rap music videos growing up, whatever it was, you know? But you know what? Ultimately, you don't date a type. You don't pursue a type. You don't meet and talk to and fall in love with a type. You fall in love with a unique individual. That's a very, very different thing. And a lot of people, in a weird sense, they're not prepared for that. You know, I don't think it's their parents that put them up to. Maybe in some cases. Maybe in some cases the mom sits down the girl and gives them the talk. But like, so for that Chinese teacher in Kunming, she's thinking, who wants a man who's 36 years old and has a kid from a former marriage, is divorced? Who wants that?
Yeah, that's what my parents said.
Who wants that? No. Nobody wants a theory. People want him.
Right.
We want this guy. You want this. You don't want an idea of a man.
Right.
It's a particular man. Then you find out what comes with it. Okay, so here's the clip I'm responding to. Inexplicably popular YouTuber. And you're going to see whether she's doing it intentionally or passively, consciously, self-consciously. She's really kind of catering to the fantasy. She's catering to a lot of things that people in the audience want to hear.
I think online dating is really exacerbating people's standards, making them higher than they think they are, and people should really just examine where those standards came from, whether it's from outside or if it's from an inside influence. And if people go into Tinder with a wholesome mindset, I'm sure it can work out, but I think it's just exacerbating the shallowness in our culture. And I know this is a pretty well talked about topic, And because we live in a more gender equal society, women aren't really looking for their provider anymore. They're more so just looking for someone they're either compatible with or who looks really hot. And this is kind of problematic nowadays because, especially with the influx of online dating and Tinder, everyone is so obsessed with how someone looks, someone's height, someone's superficial, where they went to college or what their job is, just to figure out whether or not they'll be compatible. And it's not really wholesome anymore.
I love that wishful thinking element. It's like, make America great again. There's this unquestioned choice that it's not wholesome anymore.
As though women in the past weren't looking for men just because they were attractive.
What do you? When people got blackout drunk in the 1930s, it was wholesome, right? When people used to snort cocaine in the 1930s, it was wholesome. When your grandparents did cocaine, it was wholesome cocaine. But these days, it's low and dirty cocaine. No, it's the same cocaine, my dude. It's the same clap. It's the same, It ain't the same AIDS. AIDS is new, I admit, But I mean, dude, it's the same pregnancy. What can I tell you? Blaming the internet for people being shallow.
Yeah.
It's shallow. It's like, I think that's the other challenge here. So, I mean, look, I stated in a different way. This idea that desire is going to be something wholesome and profound and not something shallow. I mean, is that even how you choose your roommate? When there's no sexuality, is that how you choose? That you choose your friends if you're completely heterosexual, same gender friends. Is it really that deep or what, man?
Yeah.
When you look back at the people who became your friends and how and why.
Just from our experience, I remember when we were first getting together, my brother told me that relationships are based off of a mutual understanding, mutual respect, and love for each other. And that was at a point when I hadn't even met you. I knew a lot about you from your videos, but of course it was a shallow desire for you that was leading me to make this huge flight across the world to meet
So you
you.
see, I think,
Of course it was shallow, but it was also deep, I mean, this is one of your catchphrases.
It's shallow and it's deep at the same time. Look, whatever, any period of time, 1950s, 1970s, if you met someone at a bar over a glass of beer, did you know more or less about them than today you know by looking them up on, let's just say YouTube. Let's stick to YouTube. How much did you know about me by watching a bunch of my videos on YouTube? I think you knew a lot of really deep stuff about me from YouTube. I had a lot of deep stuff on my channel. But, other people, okay, let's say in theory, what if I dated someone who was into Game of Thrones? Because I saw their channel and they're talking about politics and Game of Thrones and, history and what they like about books. Maybe not that deep, but still we'd be starting on the first date on a whole different level from the good old days when things were wholesome, when people weren't shallow because people didn't have the internet and smartphones.
Yeah,
saying that people...
Saying
that people were not shallow before the internet is like saying that people were not naked before the internet. You see people naked because of the internet. You see people being shallow because of the internet. But yeah, before the internet, people were shallow.
And anyone who's under 6 feet is like a manlet and they'll never get some girlfriend. And I think that's pretty toxic, especially coming from girls who are like 5'2" or 5'4", or even 5'5" and stuff, because why do you need a 6-foot boyfriend? I can understand if you want a boyfriend who's taller than you, maybe. I suppose it can make sense if maybe you're 5'8" or 5'9" and you want a boyfriend who's taller than you, then 6 foot makes sense. I talk to a lot of people I know who are super short, 5'2", whatever, and they're like, no, I won't date anyone under 6 feet. And that's just extremely superficial to me. There's that pretty cringeworthy saying that people have where it's like the 3 6s, 6 foot, 6-figure salary, 6 inch, So I heard that and I was like, is this really a thing that people are going off of in order to date someone? It's just so superficial. And for girls specifically, it has to do...
So to me, there's something here about the nature of desire. Desire is not reasonable.
Yeah, why is she trying to fix these numbers on it? If you're 5'2", you should be willing to date a guy 5'8".
But look, when you fall in love with a particular person, you fall in love with them despite and not because of all these things.
Right, exactly.
But this is the other thing. If you're stating as a general principle, if you ask a woman, in theory, how tall a guy would you like to date? She's probably not going to say 5'2". You talk to her 10 years later, she fell in love with a guy who's 5'2". She's like, well, when I first met Steve, I thought he was too short, but we had this, and this in common. He had, whatever the story is. You don't know. I mean, God, when I was in Scotland, it was really encouraged in the culture there. It was a totally obsessed with big boobs culture. So it really encouraged that, it varies. I mean, it's really, Scotland is different from Japan and, really. But even the contrast between Scotland and Canada, you really see a cultural contrast there. How many of those guys went on and fell in love with, flat-chested women, Just saying. And whatever. I mean, you'd have to know them pretty well to know their story, and maybe they feel that they changed and maybe not, and they say, oh, well, but then I met her, and this is what we had in common, or this is what happened. Whatever the story is. You don't fall in love with an idea, So, I mean, it's interesting because they're kind of two different big continuities in Western cultural history going on here. One, this is why I didn't want you to talk about Elysium before. You can talk about it now. This is where it makes sense. One is the idea that you don't fall in love with a person, you fall in love with their soul. That is the bullshit Elysium is on. Right. That is. Whoa, it's not that you have big breasts, it's your soul. And he goes
not that you're a man or a woman, it's
right.
Your soul.
Preach. No, preach. So he takes it that far. So you were kind of alluding to that he pretends it's not even whether you have a penis or a vagina. That's like a really trivial thing because he's such a profound guy, right?
Yeah, it's so deep, his connection with other people.
Right, which starts on the basis of one photograph on Twitter, and he says, "Hit me up, I'll buy you airplane tickets, etc." You know what I mean? So no. I mean, it's complete bullshit. Yeah, you got it's fucking X-ray photograph on Twitter showing their soul. No, but he takes it. So that's one big continuity, and then the other is the idea that what human beings ought to do is live and die in service to an abstract ideal. And you see that so strongly within the history of communism, And again, I'm using communism as the example because, it doesn't have the overtly religious character of Christianity, Islam, what have you.
So for dating nowadays, I'd probably suggest people to get off Tinder and stop using that because it's really shallow. And it creates this shallow culture where you make a Tinder and then you look at all of your options. And you're like, oh, this guy went to that cool college. This guy works here. This guy's a 10 out of 10. It's just so superficial. And for girls...
But look, like the shallow is like the vessel for the profound. You're not going to have a profound relationship with someone without the shallow relationship there as the, what I'm saying, as the container for that relationship. You know what I mean? It's just really weird to me, this contempt for what she calls shallow. You're saying there are women out there who should want, in abstract and in theory, someone who's poor and short and has a small penis. Like what? That's why this video has 1 million views. This is appealing to...
She's pandering to men that want to hear this shit.
I know.
As if men don't have an ideal of a woman when they're out dating. Like, I'm not going to date a woman who doesn't have double D breasts and, blonde hair and blue eyes. Like, of course, a lot of men start out dating thinking of an ideal, and then they meet someone that they surprise themselves
that they turn out to fall in love with. Yeah.
She seems to be pandering to an audience.
Yeah, I know. What the only thing I want is, I don't know if she's doing it self-consciously. I don't know if she's aware that she's doing it. And the lack of any contrast to the male attitude is very peculiar. It's just, it's blaming women for their shallowness in not being willing to date unattractive men.
Yeah, right.
Which,
Yeah, I can't.
Is that the problem?
You see a lot of incel men.
Right, that's right. Yeah, right. It's really right.
You're one of those women.
So it's someone's fault other than mine. Yeah. Like the tragedy and the triumph of human sexuality is that the profound stuff can never be a substitute for the shallow stuff. Right? Now, it's also true the shallow stuff can't be a substitute for the profound stuff. If you're with someone, if you're in a relationship with someone, who you really respect and admire intellectually, and you feel sexually revolted by them, You should be roommates. You should be colleagues. You should not be lovers. You should not get married. You should not raise kids together. Yeah. That's also a tragic situation. But believe it or not, Melissa does not have this problem. I know, and that's the thing. I don't think you started off, so I have had people write to me, specifically writing to me saying they've always been attracted to older Jewish male intellectuals. Really, there are women who are like, oh, that was always their type and whatever, and that's what they see in me, and it's a familiar type. But the point is not, what you just had a story. There's a guy you were talking to me about, and you found him totally revolting, and you assumed he was way older than me and stuff. He was just not attracted to you at all. Yeah. Then you found out he and I are actually about the same age. Right. Yeah. So it was like, I was joking with you, like, yeah, well, I could look as bad as him a few years from now, But no, it's, that's the point. You don't fall in love with an idea. You don't fall in love with a scheduled program. Right. But nevertheless, it's totally wrong to, in this way, despise what's shallow, as if there's some kind of available substitute in the profound. And most people, what do they have in their lives that's profound? When you came to me, Melissa, you wanted to have more of a profound life. You wanted to have more of a meaningful life. What are you going to say? Most people's lives are desperate and meaningless and anxious. And, where are you going to go? And you try to find somebody to love. You try to find something meaningful to do.
Yeah. And of course, how she's saying it, any reasonable person would be like, yeah, that's right. Of course, you should be willing to date somebody who doesn't have 6 figures or a 6-inch penis or whatever. Any reasonable person is going to listen to this and think, yeah, okay, she's right.
But But flip the coin this way. Let's say you have this list: 6-figure salary, 6 foot tall, whatever. With women, you never find out how big the guy's penis is until it's too late. Men know a woman's breast size. Men know a lot more about a woman's body before they commit, right? Yeah. Before even the first date. Right. With women, okay, let's say a woman has a list, whatever the list is, list requirements she gets to this guy, he checks all the boxes. Then they get in bed together, they have sex, and it's terrible.
Even if he meets the requirements.
Right. But this is my point. What are you going to say? The shallow things matter. Sexual attraction matters. So look, most of my viewers are already horrified. They know that we have really great sexual chemistry, really great sex life. Yeah. Even compared to other YouTube channels that offer you advice on your sex life that claim they do. Another interesting, who is in a position to give advice? We had a day recently. This is about the mind over matter element, right? We had sex once when you were afraid that you had lost the card for the laundry machine. Yeah. So this is like a special key card that turns on and turns off the laundry machine in the apartment building we used to be in. Beep. Okay. And she was stressed out about it, right? And that was like it was still pretty great sex. The first 5 to 10 minutes were remarkably. Why? In a sense, you didn't feel attracted to me just because you were thinking about this thing with the laundry. You were stressed about that thing. But it was hilarious. We both joked about it after. It was like, wow, that's a contrast to every other time we've had sex, even that day, Yeah. But that month or whatever, wow, okay, there you go. But think about it. You're with someone, whether you're not attracted to them for intellectual reasons, psychological reasons, more profound and philosophical reasons, or shallow reasons. So you're kidding yourself that way too, that you can fall in love with an ideal, that you can fall in love with a checklist, and you can't. You fall in love with the particular man because of everything that's right with him, and despite everything that's wrong with him, person to person, individual.